Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Sports Talk. My name is JR, and today we're going to be taking a look at my reaction to the first college football playoff committee's top 25. So, I really want to talk about the top 11 teams, and I know 11 is kind of odd. That's because I want to talk about Stanford too, and I feel like the committee did a lot of things. I feel like a lot of teams are where they should be, but then I feel like a lot of teams really are not where they should be. I agree with Clemson being number 1. I agree with LSU being 2. I think either of those teams could be number 1. I agree with Ohio State being 3. I don't think they performed at a number 1 level this year, and that's what I like about the committee. It's just because, like in this case, if this was still just the BCS era, Ohio State would stay number 1 just because they were winning football games. But the committee looks at the strength of schedule, obviously, how you win, and that's what makes this a very unique process. So definitely agree with Ohio State's spot. What I don't agree with in the top 4 is Alabama. I have no idea why they put Alabama at number 4. You have undefeated Baylor, and they put them at number 6. Yes, they just lost their starting quarterback, but nobody knows how their quarterback is going to play. And I don't think that had anything to do with it. And people can say, well, Baylor just hasn't played anyone, and that may be true, but they're undefeated. Alabama is not. And I know the committee doesn't just look at it that way, which I also think that's very unique, some good, some bad. But Baylor hasn't struggled with any game this season. They have blown out every team, scored 60 points pretty much every single game. So I don't see why they would not put Baylor at number 4. Alabama lost at home to Ole Miss. Ole Miss has turned around and lost 2 games at Florida and at Memphis. It's not like Ole Miss is still undefeated, dominating teams. They sort of have kind of fallen off the radar for the most part. So I definitely think Baylor is way more deserving. But to move on from that, I think Florida should be even further up closer to the top 4 than they are. Referring back to Alabama, they lost to Ole Miss, and then Florida turned around and really dominated Ole Miss. And they're 6 spots behind Alabama, which I think is very, very questionable for the committee. I don't know what Alabama has done or who they've played to make them think that Alabama is a top 5 team. I mean, if you really sit back and look at it, who has Alabama beaten to be considered a top 5 team? They beat Arkansas, they beat Tennessee. I mean, really, there's not that many teams. We're going to find out who is the beast in the SEC this weekend when LSU heads to Alabama. In that game, I expect to be close. I do expect Alabama to win, though. So if that's the case, I think Alabama deserves to be the top 5. But they have not won any game that would make you think that they deserve a top 5 spot. And then obviously Notre Dame at 5, I think that's a pretty decent spot for them. They have performed very, very highly this year. Michigan State, I think, is even a little high. I think TCU has played better than Michigan State has. No, TCU has not lived up to expectations, but they have played better than Michigan State. If we remember, Michigan State barely beat Oregon by 3 points, and Oregon is now 5-3. So Oregon is not that dominant of a football team this year. So, and then it took them the last minute of the game to drive down and beat Rutgers. Again, a very struggling team at the moment. So I don't see who Michigan State's beaten. You can say they went to Ann Arbor and they beat Michigan. That last play, yes, it was very good play by the player who caught the ball and took it in. That is a very talented play. But really, if you think about it, it was kind of pure luck that even happened. So I really do think TCU should be at number 7. Michigan State should be at number 9. Florida should be at number 8. Stanford, I even think they should be a little closer. They've played great. I mean, I understand why they're where they're at. When you look at the top 10, that's totally understandable. But I think if you look at Iowa and Stanford, or Iowa and Florida, both teams, Iowa is ahead in the polls at 9th spot. You look at those games, if they played each other this coming weekend, both of those teams, I believe, would beat Iowa and beat them pretty good. Iowa's a good football team this year, but again, who have they played? The committee's putting people in these spots, and they haven't played anybody. And the people look at Baylor and say that, and it just doesn't make sense. It's like a head scratcher to me. Who has Iowa played to deserve to be in the top 10? When Stanford has played at USC, they played UCLA, they played Arizona, and you can say, oh, well, they lost to Northwestern. And that's true, they probably shouldn't have lost to Northwestern, but they have played very, about as well as you could have asked since week 1. And Florida, in my opinion, the best defense in the country. They've beaten Georgia, they've beaten Ole Miss, they've beaten, they rallied to beat Tennessee. Obviously, Tennessee's not the greatest team. And then they went to LSU and fell by 7 points. To me, this team is a top 7 or 8 team. So I think I agree with some spots, but then I disagree with a lot of others. I do think some of these teams, some deserve to be lower, and some don't deserve to be as high as the committee put them. So that's just my opinion. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy this, please like it and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, this is Sports Talk, heading out.